Okay. Volume, 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 volume. Hey.
That sound. Is sound rolling or is it not?
I think it is. Because look, we got little bars.
Did we not have bars before? Did you check?
I was looking for them and they weren't there.
Are we audible? La 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 la. No, we are not.
What?
No. We're not audible. Sorry. That was misleading.
Okay. I thought you replied no, and I was like, no, I don't know what else to do that.
Oh, we are audible.
Great.
I mean, we're not audible,
Phew.
but we are audible.
Yeah, we're not.
We're not audible.
Like, yeah, we're visible, but we want to be audible as well.
Both and.
Yeah.
Both and. Aaron told me to switch to ASL.
What's ASL?
American Sign Language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being a smarty pants, except then I did. This is not my ASL. Thanks for letting us know, Arrow.
Yeah, thank you. It's like our soundboard engineer.
It's a sound guy.
Yeah. Oh,
he's like, there is sound, there isn't sound.
It's hard to find a good sound guy.
It really is. Okay, so chapter 6. Among the innumerable categories applicable to the phenomena, this is going to be a good one.
Oh no.
Among the innumerable categories applicable to the phenomena of human life, one may discriminate between those in which substance prevails and those in which form prevails. He really is assuming that this is the only book we have ever read and will ever read.
Isn't it? I mean, I've read other books.
You have.
But I don't know why.
And you're never going to.
I mean, like, have I really read a book? No.
Probably not, yeah. To the latter, as distinguished from village, country, provincial, or even Moscow life, we may allot Petersburg life, and especially the life of its salons. That life of the salons is unchanging. Since the year 1805, we had made peace, and had again quarreled with Bonaparte and had made constitutions and unmade them again. But the salons of Anna Pavlovna and Helena remained just as they had been, the one 7 and the other 5 years before. At Anna Pavlovna's, they talked with perplexity of Bonaparte's successes just as before, and saw in them and in the subservience shown to him by the European sovereigns a malicious conspiracy, the sole object of which was to cause unpleasantness and anxiety to the court circle of which Anna Pavlovna was the representative. And in Helena's salon, which Rumyantsev himself honored with his visits, regarding Helena as a remarkably intelligent woman, they talked with the same ecstasy in 1812 as in 1808 of the great nation and the great man, and regretted our rupture with France, a rupture which, according to them, ought to be promptly terminated by peace.
Of late, since the emperor's return from the army, there had been some excitement in these conflicting salon circles and some demonstrations of hostility to one another, but each camp retained its own tendency. In Anna Pavlovna's circle, only those Frenchmen were admitted who were deep-rooted legitimists, and patriotic views were expressed to the effect that one ought not to go to the French theater, and that to maintain the French troop was costing the government as much as a whole army corps. The progress of the war was eagerly followed, and only the reports most flattering to our army were circulated. In the French circle of Helena and Rumyantsev, the reports of the cruelty of the enemy and of the war were contradicted, and all Napoleon's attempts at conciliation were discussed. In that circle, they discountenanced those who advised hurried preparations for removal to Kazan of the court and the girls' educational establishments under the patronage of the Dowager Empress. In Helena's circle, the war in general was regarded as a series of formal demonstrations, which would very soon end in peace. And the view prevailed expressed by Bilibin, who now in Petersburg was quite at home in Helena's house, which every clever man was obliged to visit, that not by gunpowder, but by those who invented it, would matters be settled. In that circle, the Moscow enthusiasm, news of which had reached Petersburg simultaneously with the emperor's return, was ridiculed sarcastically and very cleverly, though with much caution.
Anna Pavlovna's circle, on the contrary, was enraptured by this enthusiasm and spoke of it as Plutarch speaks of the deeds of the ancients. Prince Vasily, who still occupied his former important posts, formed a connecting link between these two circles. He visited his good friend Anna Pavlovna, as well as his daughter's diplomatic salon, and often in his constant comings and goings between the two camps became confused and said at Helena's what he should have said at Anna Pavlovna's, and vice versa.
Soon after the emperor's return, Prince Vasily, in a conversation about the war at Anna Pavlovna's, severely condemned Barclay de Tolly, but was undecided as to who ought to be appointed commander-in-chief. One of the visitors, usually spoken of as a man of great merit, having described how he had seen that day seen Kutuzov, the newly chosen chief of the Petersburg militia, presiding over the enrollment of recruits at the treasury, cautiously ventured to suggest that Kutuzov would be the man to justify all requirements.
Anna Pavlovna remarked with a melancholy smile that Kutuzov had done nothing but cause the emperor annoyance.
I've talked and talked at the assembly of the nobility, Prince Vasily interrupted, but they did not listen to me. I told them his election as chief of the militia would not please the emperor. They did not listen to me.
It's all this mania for opposition, he went on. And who for? It is all because we want to ape the foolish enthusiasm of those Muscovites, Prince Vasily continued, forgetting for a moment that though at Helena's one had to ridicule the Moscow enthusiasm, at Anna Pavlovna's one had to be ecstatic about it. But he retrieved his mistake at once. Now, it is suitable that Kutuzov, the oldest general in Russia, should preside at that tribunal. He will get nothing for his pains. How could they make a man commander-in-chief who cannot mount a horse, who drops asleep at a council, and has the very worst morals? A good reputation he made for himself in Bucharest. I don't speak of his capacity as a general, but at a time like this, how they appoint a decrepit, blind old man, positively blind? A fine idea to have a blind general. He can't see anything. To play blind man's bluff, he can't see at all.
No one replied to his remarks.
This was quite correct on the 24th of July, but on the 29th of July, Kutuzov received the title of Prince. This might indicate a wish to get rid of him, and therefore Prince Vasily's opinion continued to be correct, though he was not now in any hurry to express it. But on the 8th of August, a committee consisting of Field Marshal Saltykov, that always makes me laugh, Saltykov, Arak Chief Vyatsmitinov, Lopukhin, and Kobushe met to consider the progress of the war. This committee came to the conclusion that our failures were due to a want of unity in the command, and though the members of the committee were aware of the emperor's dislike of Kutuzov, after a short deliberation, they agreed to advise his appointment as commander-in-chief. That same day, Kutuzov was appointed commander-in-chief with full powers over the armies and over the whole region occupied by them. I think this is a good call.
This is a good call?
I think so.
We like Kutuzov.
Unless the emperor screws him. Or unless the fact that he's not in favor with the emperor.
I think he's written kind of as a tragic character.
You're right. Why do I expect anything's going to go well in War and Peace?
Maybe well. Who knows? You think it's a good call?
I mean, I think
for the
army.
Yes,
that's
yes.
What I mean.
So perhaps.
Yeah.
On the 9th of August, Prince Vasily at Anna Pavlovna's again met the man of great merit. The latter was very attentive to Anna Pavlovna because he wanted to be appointed director of one of the educational establishments for young ladies. Prince Vasily entered the room with the air of a happy conqueror who had attained the object of his desires.
Well, have you heard the great news? Prince Kutuzov is field marshal. All dissensions are at an end. I'm so glad, so delighted. At last, we have a man, said he, glancing sternly and significantly round at everyone in the drawing room.
At last. Yeah. At length. Like that. And no one spoke. And he just looked around at everyone. The man of great merit, despite his desire to obtain the post of director, could not. Who's this man of great merit, and why don't we name him?
It's what's it called?
Is it?
Isn't it Kutuzov? Maybe not.
I think it's just some random guy that there's like, oh, there was a guy.
Oh, the guy who was
known as a man of great merit.
Oh, totally. You're right. What am I saying?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you're right.
All right, the man of great merit, Mr. X, despite his desire to obtain the post of director, could not refrain from reminding Prince Vasily of his former opinion. Though this was impolite to Prince Vasily in Anna Pavlovna's drawing room, and also to Anna Pavlovna herself, who had received the news with delight, he could not resist the temptation.
But, Prince, they say he is blind, said he, reminding Prince Vasily of his own words.
Nonsense. He sees well enough, said Prince Vasily rapidly, in a deep voice and with a slight cough. Oh, yeah, nonsense. He sees well enough. The voice and cough with which he was wont to dispose of all difficulties. A cough will do that.
It will, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's like really like racks your whole body and you start to like choke. People are like, oh God.
It's okay. I forgot about it. Yeah.
He sees well enough, he added. And what I am so pleased about, he went on, is that our sovereign has given him full powers over all the armies and the whole region, powers no commander-in-chief ever had before. He is a second autocrat, he concluded with a victorious smile.
God grant it, said Anna Pavlovna.
The man of great merit, who was still a novice in court circles, wishing to flatter Anna Pavlovna by defending her former position on this question, observed.
It is said that the emperor was reluctant to give Kutuzov those powers. They say he blushed like a girl to whom Joconde is read, when he said to Kutuzov, your emperor and the fatherland award you this honor.
Perhaps the heart took no part in that speech, said Anna Pavlovna.
Oh, no, warmly rejoined Prince Vasily, who could not now yield Kutuzov to anyone. In his opinion, Kutuzov was not only admirable himself, but was adored by everybody. No, that's impossible, said he, for our sovereign appreciated him so highly before.
God grant only that Prince Kutuzov assumes real power and does not allow anyone to put a spoke in his wheel, observed Anna Pavlovna.
Understanding at once to whom she alluded, Prince Vasily said in a whisper,
I know for a fact that Kutuzov made it an absolute condition that the Tsarevich should not be with the army. Do you know what he said to the emperor?
And Prince Vasily repeated the words supposed to have been spoken by Kutuzov to the emperor. I can neither punish him if he does wrong, nor reward him if he does right.
Oh! A very wise man is Prince Kutuzov. I have known him a long time.
They even say, remarked the man of great merit, who did not yet possess courtly tact.
Clearly not.
That His Excellency made it an express condition that the sovereign himself should not be with the army.
As soon as he said that, both Prince Vasily and Anna Pavlovna turned away from him and glanced sadly at one another with a sigh at his naivete. He's been excommunicated.
This poor man of great merit.
He no longer has much merit.
Ugh.
He's just squandered all.
Or maybe
merit.
that's the point. He shows merit, but it hasn't accumulated into anything.
Yeah, and then they're like, no. So sad. And by the way, I don't think he was any more subtle than any one of them in any moment.
No, definitely.
Should we do chapter 7?
Should.
Yeah?
Well, yes.
Okay.
And then call it. Yeah, it's a short one.
Okay. So, chapter 7.
Mm-hmm.
While this was taking place in Petersburg, the French had already passed Smolensk and were drawing nearer and nearer to Moscow. Napoleon's historian Thiers, like other... Do you know how you say that?
Thiers?
Thiers?
Thiers.
Thiers.
I'm sure it's like that.
His historian.
Add some nasal and cough.
Thiers.
Cough while you say it, and we'll forgive you. There you go.
Okay. Like other of his historians, trying to justify his hero, says that he has drawn to the walls of Moscow against his will. He is as right as other historians who took for the explanation of historic events in the will of one man. He is as right as the Russian historians who maintain that Napoleon was drawn to Moscow by the skill of the Russian commanders. Here, besides the law of retrospection, which regards all the past as a preparation for events that subsequently occur, the law of reciprocity comes in, confusing the whole matter. A good chess player, having lost a game, is sincerely convinced that his loss resulted from a mistake he made, and looks for that mistake in the opening, but forgets that at each stage of the game, there were similar mistakes and that none of his moves were perfect. He only notices the mistake to which he pays attention, because his opponent took advantage of it. How much more complex than this is the game of war, which occurs under certain limits of time and where it is not one will that manipulates lifeless objects, but everything results from innumerable conflicts of various wills.
After Smolensk, Napoleon sought a battle beyond Dorogobush at Vyazma, and then at Zarevo Zaimish. But it happened that owing to a conjunction of innumerable circumstances, the Russians could not give battle till they reached Borodino, 70 miles from Moscow. Beyond Vyazma, Napoleon ordered a direct advance on Moscow.
Moscow, la capitale asiatique de ce grand empire. How long is this going to go on for?
Only one more sentence.
Okay, I shall persevere.
Whew.
La ville sacrée des peuples, I don't know how to say people, d'Alexandre, Moscou avec ses innombrables églises en forme de pagodes chinoises. This Moscow gave Napoleon's imagination no rest. On the march from Vyazma to Zarevo-Zaimish, he rode his light bay bobtailed ambler, accompanied by his guards, his bodyguard, his pages, and aide-de-camp. Berthier, his chief of staff, dropped behind to question a Russian prisoner captured by the cavalry, followed by Le Lorgne d'Ideville. How would you say that?
Le Lorgne d'Ideville.
D'Ideville.
I think so.
Ville. Huh. An interpreter.
That's how I say it.
He overtook Napoleon at a gallop and reined in his horse with an amused expression.
Well, that's Napoleon.
One of Platov's Cossacks says that Platov's corps is joining up. This guy's French, by the way.
Obviously.
Is joining up with the main army. And that Kutuzov has been appointed commander-in-chief. He is a very shrewd and garrulous fellow.
Napoleon smiled and told them to give the Cossack a horse and bring the man to him. He wished to talk to him himself. Several adjutants galloped off, and an hour later... Oh, wow! Lavrushka, the serf Denisov, had handed over to Rostov, rode up to Napoleon in an orderly's jack. No.
Well.
Oh, I got excited. No. I mean, we kind of mentioned Denisov. Anyway, but this is about Lavrushka. Had handed over to Rostov, rode up to Napoleon in an orderly's jacket and on a French cavalry saddle with a merry and tipsy face. Napoleon told him to ride by his side and began questioning him.
You are a Cossack?
Yes, Cossack, Your Honor.
The Cossack, not knowing in what company he was for Napoleon's plane. Why is this in quotes?
I don't know.
I guess it's history. The Cossack, not knowing in what company he was, for Napoleon's plain appearance had nothing about it that would reveal to an oriental mind the presence of a monarch, talked with extreme familiarity of the incidents of the war, says Thiers. Narrating this episode. Let's just jump into future retrospective history books.
Yeah, now it's Thiers who's telling us War and Peace.
Yeah. Great. In reality, Lavrushka, having got drunk the day before and left his master dinnerless, had been whipped and sent to the in quest of chickens, where he engaged in looting till the French took him prisoner. Lavrushka was one of those coarse, barefaced lackeys who have seen all sorts of things, consider it necessary to do everything in a mean and cunning way, are ready to render any sort of service to their master, and are keen at guessing their master's baser impulses, especially those prompted by vanity and pettiness. Cool.
Finding himself in the company of Napoleon, whose identity he had easily and surely recognized, Lavrushka was not in the least abashed, but merely did his utmost to gain his new master's favor.
He knew very well that this was Napoleon, but Napoleon's presence could no more intimidate him than Rostov's or Sergeant Major's with the rods would have done, for he had nothing that either of the Sergeant Major or Napoleon could deprive him of.
So he rattled on, telling all the gossip he had heard among the orderlies. Much of it is true, but much of it
Not
True.
a bit true.
But when Napoleon asked him whether the Russians thought they would beat Bonaparte or not, Lavrushka screwed up his eyes and considered.
In this question, he saw subtle cunning, as men of his type see cunning in everything. So he frowned and did not answer immediately.
It's like this, he said thoughtfully. If there's a battle soon, yours will win. That's right. But if 3 days pass, then after that, well, then that same battle will not soon be over.
Lalonde d'Ideville smilingly interpreted this speech to Napoleon thus: if a battle takes place within the next 3 days, the French will win, but if later, God knows what will happen. Napoleon did not smile, though he was evidently in high good humor, and he ordered these words to be repeated.
Lavrushka noticed this, and to entertain him further, pretending not to know who Napoleon was, added,
We know that you have Bonaparte and that he has beaten everybody in the world, but we are a different matter. Without knowing why or how this bit of boastful patriotism slipped out at the end.
How can he know?
There's no one that can know things.
No. The interpreter translated these words without
That's
the
very
last
funny to me.
phrase. Is it?
Just this. Just like he's like, I just had some patriotism rise up. And I just like
You never
talked a
have
good
that?
one for a
You
second.
never have that patriotism just like it's kind of like a burp.
I
It's like,
don't
"Whoa!"
think I don't
didn't know
think
that was still in there.
see, I usually do know what's in there is the problem. So I don't have that moment of like, oh, I don't know how that got in there. That's not a thing that I recognize. Okay, sorry.
The interpreter translated these words without the last phrase. And Bonaparte smiled. The young Cossack made his mighty interlocutor. Why can I do these long syllabic words?
Syllabic.
Interlocutor smile. I'm sure I'm emphasizing something wrong there. Says TA.
Just emphasize everything, something wrong in every word.
Cool. There, that's the rule. After writing a few passes in Salons, yes, Napoleon turned to Berthier and said he wished to see how the news that he was talking to the emperor himself, to that very emperor who had written his immortally victorious name on the pyramids, would affect this enfant du don.
What's du don?
Of
Don.
to give, child of the dawn. Thanks, that's really helpful.
Cool. The fact was accordingly conveyed to Lavrushka.
Lavrushka, understanding that this was done to perplex him and that Napoleon expected him to be frightened to gratify his new masters, promptly pretended to be astonished and awestruck, opened his eyes wide, and assumed the expression he usually put on when taken to be whipped. As soon as Napoleon's interpreter had spoken, said Thiers, the Cossack, seized by amazement, did not utter another word, but rode on, his eyes fixed on the conqueror whose fame had reached him across the steppes of the East. All his loquacity was suddenly arrested and replaced by a naive and silent feeling of admiration. Napoleon, after making the Cossack a present, had him set free like a bird restored to its native fields.
Is that right? Napoleon rode on, dreaming of the Moscow that had so appealed to his imagination. And the bird, restored to its native fields, galloped to our outposts, inventing on the way all that had taken place, inventing on the way all that had not taken place, but that he meant to relate to his comrades. What had really taken place he did not wish to relate, because it seemed to him not worth telling. He found the Cossacks, inquired for the regiment operating with Platov's detachment, and by evening found his master, Nicholas Rostov, quartered at Yankovo. Rostov was just mounting to go for a ride round the neighboring villages with Ilian. He let Lavrushka have another horse and took him along with him.
Yes?
Sure. Sorry about the disturbance.
Yeah. Thrilling stuff, though.
Listen. Did you find that ultra boring?
A little. Did
little
you?
ultra boring.
A little boring.
Slightly, because something makes me want to keep reading, and that I think is that feeling of like, but nothing's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what that is.
What have we learned so far?
What have we learned?
Kutuzov is back.
He's a prince. He's a petit prince.
And what a weird random chapter about
Napoleon?
Yeah. Well, like told from someone else's point of view.
They have to do it that way, I think.
Do they?
Yeah, because we're like in Russia.
Right.
So
So we have to stay like with Russia's perspective. We can't go into.
I mean, we're just not doing that much. So we see Napoleon when Andrew's around him, and then we see him when went to go make his guy who had one job and then made up some nonsense. This time, this event.
Yes.
I forget what that guy's name was.
Okay.
Cool. And then now, it's the only time we get to really see him, I think.
Mm-hmm. What was that guy's
He kind of came out of nowhere too. It was around the same time that Volkonsky guy appeared, I think.
Yeah.
Volkonsky.
We were like, no, we're not doing this.
We aren't. And we didn't. And we haven't.
Are you good to end it there?
I'm so good.
Oh, sure, good. All right. Yeah. Sorry about the stream getting cut off.
Yeah.
But
Sorry about changing streams midstream.
How the salmon supposed to swim? Yeah. I'm gonna go bake some bread now.
Are you?
Or at least I'm gonna see if this starter wants to start.
It's already started, I think.
I have to do the float test, which is basically just does it float in water.
Let's test that shit.
What if it doesn't? Then I have to replace that.
Then you have to restart it.
I don't have any more starter. Then I guess it's just not meant to be a bread baker.
You are, though. Everyone on Instagram is meant to be a bread baker.
Apparently.
It's come out great for everybody. So
Really?
yes.
Well, I guess if it doesn't, you don't post it.
Yeah, but there are also a bunch of dongles. Just kidding. They're not at all. I think maybe like I saw a couple of like not first attempts, so
Okay.
it might take. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen if there's no starter, then you're one and done. So it might not come out good, but
I could just make pita.
really,
Or not pita, but I could make like flatbreads. Probably good.
yeah.
My dad used to make that. Like tortillas is what he called them.
But they weren't so thin.
Yeah, they weren't like wraps.
I'd be
I can make that.
down with that.
Right?
Yeah.
That sounds kind of good too. Okay. So I'm gonna do that. Bye.
I'm not gonna eat Oreos.